Party people, welcome once again to the Party of One podcast, the actual play RPG podcast where the gaming table is always set for two. I'm your host as always, Jeff Stormer, and this week on the show, I am joined by V Arrow for a game of Un-Navigateable. V is one of the hosts of This Week in Fandom History, a weekly podcast where V and Emily J tell you what happened this week in fandom history. I love This Week in Fandom History as a quick hit podcast detailing various historical events throughout fandom history. It is a remarkable look at the ways in which fandom has always been fandom, in which people have always been people, and it is a wonderful blend of recapping events that you might be familiar with, or being able to say oh, I was there, or I remember when, as well as stories that you might not have any idea about, or little pieces, little stories that are remarkable and incredible, and really tell the story of pop culture through the eyes of the fandom experience. You can find more information about the show at thisweekinfandomhistory.com, or you can check the show notes for more information. Because of the show's topic, fandom history, about fandom experiences, being online, tracing our own stories of fan history, V and I decided to sit down and play a game of Un-Navigateable by K. Ramstack. Un-Navigateable is a solo RPG about, honestly, what I think is one of the most horrifying experiences that you can possibly experience, which is saving your Zynga blog as it prepares to shut down in 2013. It is a combination of imagining the life of someone cataloging their blog posts as a social media post sunsets, and also going through and re-experiencing or writing/describing the blog posts that you are archiving to kind of experience someone's fandom history, to re-examine your own fandom history. It is a remarkable experience. I loved this game so much. This was a real joy to play. You can find more information at kramstack.itch.io or check the show notes for more information. And with all that said, let's go ahead and throw it over to me in the past so that he can get started with the show. Take it past me. Thanks, future me. I am so very excited. Today I am sitting down with V Arrow. V, thank you so much for coming on Party of One.
Thank you so much for having me. I have been talking about this show to everybody for the last 2 weeks or so that I was coming on a show where I was finally going to learn how to play a role-playing game.
I'm so excited to hear that. That has made my entire day. Yes, I'm really excited to get to sit down with you and share this experience and walk through the game that we have in front of us. I think is frankly a targeted call out to both of us, which I'm very excited to really get into. But before we talk about all of that, why don't you take a moment, let our lovely listeners at home know about what you've got going on you want them to know about.
Hello, I am V Arrow, also known as Aim My Arrows High, and I am known that on AO3 and on Tumblr, which should tell you that I am in the fandom world, and as such, I host or co-host a podcast called This Week in Fandom History. It is a weekly podcast, as the name implies, where we talk about the moments that shaped fandom culture as it exists today, and why those moments from the past still matter, and why they still are showing up. The same dramas are still showing up, the same complaints that people have are still showing up, and also the things that fandom has done that have changed the world for the better are still showing up and still growing and changing throughout the different things that people have loved. Over time, we have an episode coming up that we're recording soon that happened in 1850. And then we go all the way up to our threshold is it has to at least have happened a year ago to count as history. So from way back to pretty close to where we are now, we talk about the things that have changed fandom culture, nerd culture. I know my co-host Emily's favorite one that we've talked about is how Starsky and Hutch fans back in the 70s and 80s used the very first VCRs and VHS tape technology to cut together 70s porn with episodes of Starsky and Hutch to create the first fan vids, which is very fun and definitely has changed the world. And, everything from that to the first Star Trek fix, the coining of the term shipping, and also some people behaving really poorly throughout history. So, yeah.
I love your podcast, and you've hit on exactly why, which is that fandom like the fact that fandom is fandom and has always been fandom, like, is something that sits with me all the time and genuinely gives me a lot of, like, you know, joy and hope in the world, is like the ways in which the specific, and you know, for me it is a broader than fandom thing, as if anybody ask anybody about my unhealthy fixation on the complaint tablet to Ian Nasir, would tell you that,
yes.
like, the idea that people have been people for as long as we've been people is something that is, like, deeply important to me, and the way that you, like, capture the entire scope of history and you do it in a way that presents the idea of, like that Starsky and Hutch one is a perfect example. People doing things that we do now, but, like, in their historical context, and the idea that, like, somebody had to be the first one to make it, and that it was Starsky and Hutch fans stitching together porn to make their fan vids. Incredible. This is the thing that I love about your work so very much.
Thank you. Yeah, it is. It's definitely fun. And it's also, you know, one of our big beliefs on the show is that fandom history matters because it's history, period. And you're right. People are people, and fan people are in some ways the most people of all people, because it's about humans loving stuff together in a group. And that is one of the best ways and the most human ways to be a human.
I fully agree. It is a thing that is very, like, the act of, you know, loving something and allowing it to change you and, you know, bringing that change back out into the world. I promised myself I was not going to get over emotional about the concept of fandom, and I'm locking this down now. I'm not going to say that it won't come up more as we go.
Sure.
Especially because the game that we are playing today is a game about fandom. We are playing Un-Navigateable. This is a game, a solo journal writing game about the death of a social media blogging platform. It is, you know, we are sitting down in the fall of 2013, at some time in the nebulous present. We are sitting down with the death of a social media platform and are taking the role of a person trying to catalog all of the posts that they made on this blogging platform, with the caveat that they wrote nearly 10 posts a day for a good 10 years and have lost their password. So once this website is gone, all of that writing is gone with it, like tears in the rain. And it is our job to, like, recreate the memories and the posts and the experiences of the person discovering all of these things. And by doing so, we're going to talk about our own fandoms, and we're going to, like, take you know, a stock of, like, the things that made us act, you know, the game says it very nicely, of cringe is dead, love yourself. Like, we're going to talk about the things that made us feel like cringe is dead and that we loved ourselves. To which I will throw this to you. Like, what is the thing you are excited about, you know, in sitting down with this particular game today? What's on your mind? What are you bringing to the table?
I think the evolution of people's fandoms changing over time, and, like, what the thread is that draws them from one thing to another, because there's always that commonality, and it never hits you until, like, 4 fandoms later and somebody else points it, and you're like, oh no, Steve Rogers and Poe Dameron are the same guy.
Yep. Yep. Like, unfortunately true.
Shit. I think that'll be really fun to create a character and figure out, like, what is the thing that draws this character to their fictional characters that they're drawn to. I think that'll be exciting.
I feel very much the same way, and I, like, to me, and this is a thread of games that I get very excited about, and, like, the way that this game is written really speaks to me, which is, like, I think, you know, it doesn't explicitly say this in the text of the game, but, like, there is something to me there's something powerful in the, like, act of role-playing with real fandom and pop culture and things like that, and, like, grounding it in a real world, that, like, I am excited to really get into some very specific, you know, specific moments of fandom history and go, like, hey, do you remember when this happened? Let's talk about this for a minute and really unpack that through the eyes of our character.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
So, with all of that said, I threw you a question while we were off mic. I had you think about it. There's kind of 2 ways that we can go. Obviously, like, I've got all of the prompts of the game. I've got the rules of the game, which I will talk through. And, there's two ways that we can kind of approach it, which is I can read you those questions and just kind of have you purely bounce ideas around and really kind of inhabit that character where I'm just kind of throwing you prompts and curveballs and seeing where it goes. The other option is that we both take turns answering questions as the same character and really, like, collaboratively shape this person's approach to fandom together. Which of those two approaches is more exciting to you?
Ooh, I was thinking about this as you directed me to do, and I'm going to be annoying and say, which, do you have a preference?
I think I do. I think my preference might be for us both to answer questions just to, like, really, pull on a lot of unexpected threads and sort of open up the space for the mutual excitement of, oh, I didn't even consider that as a possibility. Let me throw everything that I have at the wall because of what you've put on the table.
Sure. Yeah. More yes-anding.
Yeah. I think there's a magic to that I think is going to really come to the surface.
Sure.
Okay. So we've got, let's talk a little bit about the rules of the game, and then we'll start answering some questions and sort of like unpacking our fandom experiences. I've got a deck of cards here. For each card that I have in front of me that I will draw during play, there is an associated prompt or question. They range from questions about, the like technical issues, the actual act of going through the website and trying to download things. There are those are heart cards. Diamonds are, the actual like history of the post or of the blog. So questions like why'd they start the blog, why'd they abandon it. Their reflections. This person's reflections on building the blog themselves. Clubs are their relationship to other users who are on this social media site at the same time. So like posts, messages, friends, things like that. And then spades are the blog posts themselves, what they were posting about and what they were thinking and how they were interpreting their various fandoms. So I'm going to take turns drawing these cards and we're going to answer these questions one at a time.
Okay.
However, as we're doing that, we are in constant danger of the site shutting down. Ugh. Which is to say, if we were to be playing this in person, we would have a tumbling wood block tower legally, an item that you might legally call a Jenga, but is as a trademark term, so we call it a tumbling wood block tower.
Yeah, no free ads.
But because we are playing remote, I have a simulated version of that, which is an app which rolls 100 six-sided dice and then removes any ones from the table. So the dice pool steadily shrinks and you watch a very literal ticking clock as your time and the dice in front of you run out.
Wow.
So every time as we are playing, we will be directed to pull a block from the tower or roll the dice, which will represent us running out of time to catalog all of our posts off of this blog.
Sure.
The other possible end state is there are obviously 4 kings in the deck. If we happen to draw all 4 kings over the course of play, then our character has realized that the blog is too embarrassing and we cannot bear to look at it anymore. We abandon our efforts and some things are just not worth saving. So there's a few possible ways that this can end. But hopefully, fingers crossed, we are able to just like relive some of our fandom experiences. I'm very excited. Let me ask you, would you like to answer the first question or would you like me to take that?
I can take the first question. Question.
Great. I will draw our first card. Our first card is the 7 of Hearts. Hearts represent technical issues. These represent the act of trying to download 10 years of social posts, of blog posts off of a fandom blog.
Yes.
The question that I have for you, you have pulled open the website, and an entire section of the website is unavailable because of a broken link. What does our blogger think is supposed to be there?
I mean, I think I have literally done this, going through and trying to figure out how to download my entire live journal. because, it still exists, but it's literally part of the Russian government now. So you don't want to go there. And
right. It's not ideal.
It's not great. And the terms of service is written in Russian, and I don't read Russian that well. I read it a little bit, not that well. And so I feel like when I was trying to get to LiveJournal, the part that was broken for me was communities that I was a member of, but somebody else in the community had deleted and purged their blog. So there were comment threads that were gone, or there were posts that somebody else had made, but I remembered that they existed because it was like a fic that I remembered loving or whatever. And it was in that community for sure, but it was gone. So that's my immediate instinct, is the community links are all messed up because of other people also having their blogs deleted or trying to save them, and in a different way.
I, one, had that almost exact experience trying to pull my LiveJournal and catalog those things. And two, in a real deja vu moment, history doesn't repeat, but it rhymes a lot of the time. I had also the same experience trying to pull, when Twitter stopped being Twitter, I had a very similar experience of trying to pull a lot of the things that I had on there. And, quote tweets in particular, you would go and be like, I'm reacting to something here. I'm never going to know what it is, but I can tell that I was really, really upset about it. And I can't for the life of me remember what it was that bothered me so much.
Yeah. 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 And in the community posts too, it's whole people that I knew were suddenly, there's no record of them. And it's they became an imaginary friend almost, in a way that internet friends, I think people who aren't very online think that online friends are kind of like imaginary friends. But when you are a very online person and you're in fandom, they're your real friends.
You build very real relationships very quickly.
Yes. And then suddenly somebody is there's no record that they existed, and it feels horrible. Yeah. I mean, this game is really stressful for me because, especially as a fandom historian, it's very no, but we're always on the verge of losing Tumblr. And when we lose Tumblr, all will be lost. It's very stressful.
You've hit, yes, we share the same stress, especially in Tumblr's case, because Tumblr does kind of always feel like it's a blow of the wind away from just one day not being there. And I hope that it never happens, but it always feels like it's half a step away.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Wonderful answer. Really wonderful. Wonderful way to kick us off, right? We've established the reality of this blog, I think, in a really fun way, which is that there's a lot of dead ends. There's a lot of missing people, missing faces, missing stories, missing fics. So now I'm going to pull 2 blocks from the tower, which means I'm going to click this button twice. We initially have 100 dice waiting for us in our pool.
Okay.
We now have 65.
Oh, okay. Oh.
It goes quick. It goes quicker than you think it will.
Yes.
All right. Great. Our next question. Is the Ace of Diamonds. Aces represent what it's all for. Our blogger finds an unassuming post about a mundane but lovely day they had with their grandmother who has since passed. They don't remember reading this until the post and all the memories came back. Okay. They would have never remembered this moment if not for this blog. So we're going to set this card aside. When there are 3 blocks set aside, go ahead and place them at the top of the tower. You may only do this once. So we set this aside.
Okay.
And I get to talk about a post that they found, which I think we kind of talked about earlier of I really love this prompt of how it connects to a thing that I have found really beautiful about interacting with fandom, which is you kind of said it nicely where you see these people become, the idea that these are not imaginary friends, these are real people in their lives. And when you see those specific moments where a blog that you are following has a very human interaction. In fact, one of my, this ties into, I think, one of my least favorite, understandable, but also least favorite fandom blog, fandom's posting account, things that happens. which is, and I've seen a lot of very nice Tumblr posts refuting this, which is like when someone apologizes for posting content that is not in line with their fandom,
Mm-hmm.
the anger that I feel in my heart immediately at like, I want you think I don't want to know about the bread that you baked? You
Yeah.
think that I don't want that? How dare you?
Yeah.
So I think that I like it being, this is a post in line with that, in the middle of a like 3-part serialized fic.
Yeah.
It's right in between chapters 2 and 3. And it leads with an apology of like, hey y'all, sorry, chapter 3 is running behind. I promise I'm going to get to it next week. My grandma was in town and, we went to the farmer's market and there's like a picture of my grandmother holding the largest like butternut squash that you can imagine. And it's just like, she got this squash. And like she wanted me to post it on here and to show my internet friends the squash that she got. Like, and I think there are a lot of lost comments on that post.
Yeah.
There's a lot of like account deleted posts. You know what I mean? A lot of ghost posts. And like part of the memory that I have of this is like what a lovely day of both my life, my grandmother's life, and also the life of my fandom friends all kind of sharing this experience together. Because like I remember how much all of my internet friends popped the hell off about this squash.
Yes.
And like that was a really important which is also my favorite genre of post in the entire world.
Yes. No, people would be so excited about like Linda's squash. Like they would be so happy for Linda. They would want to know exactly what she's going to make with it. They're like, where does she live in North Dakota? Can I come have some of her butternut squash galette? Like they're into it and it becomes a thing and people ask about it later.
And like I had forgotten about all that, right?
Yes.
Like I had forgotten about this moment and then I looked back and I was like, man, like it was a brief moment where like both of these worlds kind of collided, and I think there's a beauty and a sadness in that, but it, like the sadness does not outweigh the beauty of like I remember how happy all of these people were on both sides of my life at this moment, and this is kind of exactly why we're chasing after this thing and why I'm trying to catalog these blog posts.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, are you ready for your next card?
I think so.
This is the 6 of clubs. Clubs are other users. Your blog was never very popular. What sort of posts did you make to attempt to gain popularity?
Oh boy, a thing I am not good at.
You and me both.
I feel like the only time that I ever had, this is me as a human person, not as a character, the only time that I ever had any like popularity in a fandom was completely like just hitting the right fandom at the right moment. And I didn't realize that it was the right fandom at the right moment. But in 2010, I made a map of the country where the Hunger Games takes place, which I've not seen the movies for reasons that are very complex, but boil down to I don't like the way that they're cast, and also some other things. But so I always pronounced it Panem because I'm very Midwestern and have the short A's that are very nasal. And apparently in the movies it's Panem, which fine, whatever. So I made a map of Panem. And overnight it went legitimately like viral and was in Us Weekly and Time and Newsweek and like all of these places that I was shocked had heard of LiveJournal, let alone my LiveJournal, let alone a nerd map that I made for myself to be able to reference while writing fan fiction, which is purely the reason that I made it was to be like, wait, where is she crossing when on the train after on the Victory Tour? How does this country work? And so I made this map, and because it went viral, a lot of people still reference it as the map that they have used for writing their fic, which I think is really cool and really fun.
That's incredible.
I
That's
like
the coolest.
that it shows up. Yeah, I like that it shows up, in other people's fan works in that way. Of like people who haven't even heard of me have just seen the map, and like people who weren't even born yet at this point when I made that map are using it as reference when they're reading and writing fan fiction, which is crazy and makes me feel very old. But it is really cool. So I feel like that's just leaning into the nerd of it all.
Mm-hmm.
The only thing that's ever like made it quote unquote popular.
Sure. Can I tell you my similar story about 3 words that have haunted. Really, I say haunted me. I think it's not an inaccurate way to say it. Can I tell you the story of the Olive Garden LARP?
Yes, I'm a little nervous, but yes.
A friend of mine made a joke on social, and somebody, and like I forget, I don't remember the full context has been lost to time, like old blog posts. They were joking, and somebody made a joke, and somebody like tagged me on social and was like, "Jeff, write a LARP to be played at the Olive Garden."
Mm-hmm.
And I wrote like a 1-page Olive Garden LARP that is designed to be played at an Olive Garden. It uses unlimited soup salad and breadsticks as the central mechanic.
It would have to.
It has to. It's the only thing that makes. And on a whim, my wife and I were going out to dinner. I tweeted, "Hey, at Olive Garden, please make me your official LARP designer." Hit send. Turned off my phone because I was like, I'm going out. I want to be present. I want to be out with my wife. And the next day, I got an email that was like, "Hey, do you want to be on Kotaku?" And I was like, "What do you mean? What do you mean? No, what do you mean?" And that is I to this day will still periodically have people be like, "Jeff, did you know about this Olive Garden LARP?" And I'm like, yeah, I do. I do know this.
You to use a meme about Olive Garden, you're shoving the breadsticks in your purse and you're like, I gotta go.
I can't. I actually went to an Olive Garden for the first time in about a decade this year, and truly it was a moment of just like, oh, it was just like the surrealness of like, this has been a huge part of my life now for a decade, and it's just really sort of hovering. And so, like, I kind of want to propose, what if the thing that we wrote that made this blog popular is somehow right in the middle? Like, it was a reference thing, or like a relationship map, or like some piece of material that we wrote largely as a joke. You know what I mean? Like, sure. It was something we did on a lark that, we woke up the next day, like, and people were like, "No, but you don't understand. This is actually a very important, like, resource." And, like, It became important overnight.
Yeah. Yeah. I like that. I feel like one of the things that happens that it seems to happen a lot in fandoms, and not just since the internet, it goes back to, like, pre-internet fandom, but people will just create a ship out of absolutely nowhere. And then, like, tons of people get super into it. And they're like, I made this as a joke for my friend Beth, but okay. Like, if you want to write a 300-page zine about this ship that I made up for my friend Beth, like, go for it. And I feel like maybe it's something like that. Like, I'm trying to think of a movie that is, like, unshippable, but somebody just, our character, like, created a ship out of something ridiculous.
Sure.
And then people got and it became like a fandom unto itself.
I love that pitch so very much. I even building on that, the idea that, like, maybe it wasn't a fandom that we were in, or that we didn't realize, that the seeds were there for a fandom to emerge.
Yeah.
And it was just like a post about, like, just watched Glengarry Glen Ross. Let's talk about the sexual dynamics at play, and then woke up and people were like, You actually don't understand. This hit me at a moment when I needed to talk about this, and we were like, I guess I gotta like really sit down and study this movie and play.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
This is I'm over the moon. This has already hit every box that I wanted this experience to hit. All right, we have got the 8 of diamonds. What is it all for? Reading the posts has made them emotional for their youth. Are they nostalgic or are they happy it's over? Wow, what a follow-up question.
Yeah. Yeah.
Damn. I think what it is,
Mhm.
and this is in no way Jeff reflecting on his own fandom experiences, any similarities to people living or dead is purely coincidental.
Mhm.
I think I'm happy to be in a place where I feel more centered about it.
Mhm. Mhm.
I think is the way that I would describe it. Going through these posts, there's a lot of derailment and reblogs on reblogs on reblogs on reblogs of like getting very into the weeds of things.
Yeah.
And like it's tempting to get nostalgic for the passion of that, but at the same time, like, I think where I'm at right now is a feeling of like, I feel like what and a little bit, and part of the thing that I think like you miss when you feel like that is like really being, like on the front lines about it, but also kind of being like, yeah, but also I was getting swept up in every single wave of it.
Yeah.
I was a boat on a wave, and like there is something to being tethered to the dock and being able to be like, yeah, that's happening out at sea. That's further ashore than I could possibly desire to be. And I think like that's the piece that feels like it's happy that it's over.
Yeah. Yeah, I can definitely agree with that. I always say when I was in Star Wars fandom, I was not a nice or fun person. And it's because I was reacting so genuinely, but in a big way to just everything. Because Star Wars makes people uniquely insane. There's just something about
That's
Star Wars.
A correct assessment.
Yeah. I don't know what it is about Star Wars. I don't know what it is about that galaxy. I don't know what George Lucas put in that sauce, but it makes people uniquely insane, including me. And I was not a nice or fun person when I was in Star Wars fandom as my main fandom. And sometimes but I also met my best friend in Star Wars fandom. And one of the only 2 times ever that we've met in person in real life was to go see Solo, a Star Wars story. And so, I do miss a lot of things about Star Wars fandom just because it was when you are reacting really big to everything and you're in the thick of it all, you are interacting with people a lot more than I necessarily interact with people now, because I'm not reacting to every single thing that comes up. And I think part of that is just that my main fandom right now is much more in a chill place because it's not over, but it's, kind of dormant. And so there isn't stuff to be reacting to constantly.
Sure.
But it also, I know that I am a much nicer, more fun person now than I was when the Star Wars sequel trilogy was coming out. I know that for a fact. And so I feel like, yeah, that totally makes sense for this character as well, of like so many fandoms, especially if we're looking at like blogs, that are the social media site is dying. And if it was active, in the, let's say mid 2000s to like mid 2010s, so many fandoms were in their heyday at that point, that I feel like that is when a lot of people were in that, hyper reacting to everything in a huge way phase of and also just being younger, like being in your teens or 20s is very like everything is kind of feels life or death.
I just got hit with the hugest wave of memory, which I think is part of the magic of this game is, and also playing it with you as somebody that like has that deep insight into fandom, like and has that like lived perspective of like I just got struck with the largest wave of God, I remember where I was and who I was, because in the mid 2000s I would have been deep in like mid to late 2005 to 2010 when I was in college. It would have been when there was a comic book shop in walking distance to my house. That was when I had pull lists and when I was the deepest I've ever been into like month to month ongoing superhero comics.
Yeah.
And that would have specifically been in the moment in DC Comics history that I think makes me the most uniquely insane, which is like in and around DC Comics 52 and Infinite Crisis.
Okay.
A comic book event that is laser focused at 52 for the listener was a comic book that published every single week in 2006 to 2007, I believe.
That's right.
It was a weekly comic that was a lost year in the DC universe. And I locked in on this with a fervor that I don't know if I've ever been able to conjure in my life since then.
Yeah.
I was every single week. I was in multiple message boards and like live journal tags dissecting every single detail. My personal fandom blog point of pride that has just crashed into my head is that I predicted a 52 plot thread about like 3 or 4 months before it came out, and I will hold on to that for the rest of my life.
Very nice. Very nice.
But I just remember, and I remember like being mad. I like the feeling. If when I think back on that moment, the feeling that I remember is mad.
Yes.
Is just like you're just there's always something that's got you bothered. You know what I mean? And like that is to me like when I think about like yeah, I'm happy that I'm in a place that I can kind of like dial it back sometimes and be like, hey, I don't got it for a week, and I think I'm just gonna zone out for a little while. Like I'm gonna pick up a graphic novel when I've got the energy to do so. Like that's the energy that I remember feeling is like feeling like you have to react to every single thing, which also is me in like 2016 to 2019 on Tabletop RPG Twitter, which is a whole different thing that the listener can roast me about on Discord.
Okay. All right. Okay. Yeah, I definitely feel like I mean, Star Wars is really the biggest one where I feel like I was mad all the time, but I also feel like in the early 2010s I was very in my last live journal fandom was when everybody was transitioning over to Tumblr. So my first Tumblr fandom and my last live journal fandom was One Direction, which is very any boy band fandom is
it gets intense.
Yes, any boy band fandom is just being so in your emotions constantly and hyper scrutinizing every single thing that these five guys and anybody associated with them, any like tertiary, like 3 grades below them at school, but maybe they had a class together once that was an elective on parachuting in gym class or something. Like you are scrutinizing that Twitter or that Facebook or whatever, like crazy. And a lot of it is being really mad about stuff all the time. But also, I mean, it's also the highest highs of joy, like ever, to be in a fandom that does make you kind of in that uniquely insane like mindset, because when you do hit that like moment of something going right or going the way that you predicted or going the way that you wanted, or just somebody else losing and it's the side that you didn't want to win, like it is the best feeling. Or that moment when you find somebody who is picking up what you're putting down, and you start like co-writing a fic that is so deep in the lore of the thing that you love. And that's just the best feeling.
There's nothing like it. It's magic.
It is.
It's pure magic. And for all, somebody could listen to what we've been saying for the last few minutes and be like, well, that sounds terrible. And I'm like, no. Like, when you hit that point, when you lay out a thing and somebody else bounces back and then suddenly you're in it, there is no thing in my life that has made me feel more connected to people than being in those specific moments.
Yep, absolutely. Like, I think that's the magic of things, like, to bring it on to, like, kind of more recent Tumblr, like, that's why everybody references November 5th as such a big moment, because it was during COVID, so everybody was on the internet. It was the finale of Supernatural, which is like the show of fandom for the last 20 years. And even if you weren't watching it, I've never watched Supernatural, but I knew everything that was going on Supernatural because I'm in fandom spaces and everybody I knew watched it. And so I cared about it because I cared about them. And so you're kind of following along. And then also it was the election from hell that was happening, and everybody was very invested in that because it was about whether we were going to topple to fascism, which unfortunately we did. And all of it happening at the same time on the same night in the single most insane way that it possibly could have. And everybody who was on Tumblr that night was feeling that exact same level of insane together. And it was the best. And terrible.
And then in the midst of that, in the midst of all of these powder kegs, they just threw Destiel at us.
Exactly.
They were like, by the way, like they just flicked a cigarette and it just exploded.
Right. Yes. No. We have an episode of This Week in Fandom History where we actually interviewed one of the show writers for that episode, and her perspective of that night is so funny because she obviously knew what was coming in the episode and nobody else knew. And she said, even though it was during lockdown, it was 2020, she had a friend come over and like, they were like masked in her apartment. Like, she was like, I just can't be alone while the internet finds out what I did.
Sure.
I have to have somebody with me while the internet finds out what I have done to them. And it was, I mean, that night, and also when Tumblr invented Goncharov was another night that just like everybody just jumped in and was equally like crazy at the same time about the same thing for no reason. And it was truly magical. It was such a human connection moment. It was just awesome. It was the best.
I promise that we will get back to playing the game, but this is too deep, and this is the magic sauce of the game. So we're staying here and we're lingering. I was deep in like my internet space more than any other was the forum for a video game webcomic. That was my space. I don't feel great about saying that in 2026, but like we have to own who we were. And there was a day, and I remember this day, I have a similar level of insane energy when the forum discovered the game/Twitch channel SaltyBet. SaltyBet is a janky, it's still running, you can go look at SaltyBet right now. It is a janky, like auto-running, fan-made, like computer fighting game that has just gathered fan-made characters from all the different fighting games that are built on this engine. And it just randomly selects characters and goes like, bet fake, non-existent, like you have 100 credits. Bet on who you think is going to win the fight.
Oh,
Ronald McDonald or Goku. And you just go, I don't fucking know, Goku. And then you either win or you lose. And they're all like janky and they've all been built on massively different power scales. And like, I remember like losing a day. I remember I learned a language. I learned a language in that day because you just learn all of these weird little like quirks of being like, no, that's small Goku. That's a bad port of the game. And like, I remember that experience of going like, this was when a community of people lost their goddamn minds about this thing for like 12 hours. And it
Yes.
holds in my heart as one of the greatest moments of my life.
Absolutely. Absolutely. There was back on LiveJournal, speaking of like posts that have been lost that just break my heart that they're lost. In 2000, so for a while, and I always say I was never in Twilight fandom, but I was in Twilight fandom adjacent because I was very into Robert Pattinson and Kristen Stewart. I just did not like Twilight. So first off, there's that level of insane, just as a starting point. But the day that the two of them were first photographed holding hands with like a telephoto lens, paparazzi picture through the darkness, and it like they were holding hands as they got onto a private plane in Rome to like go on a press tour or something. And I just remember the day that those pictures came out was legitimately, I think, one of the best days of my life. Not because of those pictures, but because of how happy all my friends were with me. It was, it's just, and also, I guess, because of the pictures. I mean, they're an inextricable part of it because that's what was causing the joy. But just how happy those friends of mine were, and to be sharing it with them, and the like vindication feelings of like, no, we were right, we saw something and we were right, and like, it's just, you said it's magic, and it is magic. Just, you've got to get that, the difference between being a fan and being in fandom is doing it together, and those are the moments that really underscore that.
Yes, extreme yes. So that was one turn. I feel great about that.
Yeah.
I've drawn our next card. This is hypothetically your turn, but we've both been throwing things in, and I think the turn order has largely fallen away. Yeah. But this is the 4 of spades, which means that we are going to like write a post, or at least describe a post, or talk about a specific post that we made. And this is a post about a hobby that our character no longer does. So, like, I will ask you, like, is there a fandom in your life, or a hobby, or, like, something that is tied to your fandom history that you, like, a hobby that you no longer do, or, like, something in the back of your mind that you're like, oh, I used to be big on this and it has, like, gone by the wayside?
In a fandom sense, I feel like the only thing that is coming to my mind immediately is I, for a very long time, was very into writing RPF, which is real person fan fiction.
Sure.
And now, and I think part of it is just being older than, like, like if a boy band came out tomorrow that I was super into, I would be way older than them.
Sure.
And so I don't know. And like all the people that I could theoretically write about who are around my age, like, I don't know, they have established lives, and I don't need to imagine what they're about, because they're about like grocery shopping and paying their taxes. Like, it's not super interesting. I feel like RPF is really the only thing in the fandom sphere that I've abandoned, because I really feel like once I love something, generally I never stop loving it. Like, I'm still writing fan fiction about the Babysitter's Club and American Girl, I'm very much somebody who, like, if something is part of me, it's always part of me. Except I don't think that I can see myself ever writing RPF again. And I think also because when I was writing it was before social media became a thing. And I really stopped writing it in like 2013-ish, which is around the time that like it became normal for celebrities to have social media and be broadcasting, it's still very much a performative persona that they're playing, but to be broadcasting themselves instead of being polished through these magazine interviews and stuff like that. And so I think the politics around approaching RPF have changed so much because of social media that it doesn't have the appeal that it used to, because it feels less like you're getting these tiny snippets that you know are polished and fake anyway, so why not make a fictional character out of them?
Sure.
So, yeah, I think that would be my only thing, would be that I think this character probably used to be maybe into writing RPF, now is kind of like, oh, that's nowadays that would be kind of parasocial. Like nowadays that's a little bit crossing a line.
Sure. I like that. I like that. I like that so much. That's fantastic. I have flipped the next card. This is another spade, and I'm very excited because this is the Ace of Spades.
Ooh.
Through endless scrolling into the depths of Zynga, you have finally found it. Write your first ever blog post on the new blog. The first ever blog post that I wrote. Gosh, Mom, this is another. So there is an alternate rule in this game that I very much appreciate, and I refuse to use it, but I appreciate that it's here, based on the feeling that just came through, because they're like, the alternate way to end the game is, every time you reflect on an answer and you specifically feel embarrassed, like mark it down from 10, and when you hit 0, the game is over.
Yeah.
That feeling of the air being sucked from my lungs is very much the point in my mind. But the first blog that I ever ran, I distinctly remember, and this has just crashed fully formed into my brain, I have not thought about this in 15 years, was a multi-fandom blog.
Okay.
And I remember inventing a fictional cast of writers that it would be like, the blog was designed in my head to be each individual like thing that I liked would be repped by a fictional character, and I would write in their voice, and all of it would be filtered towards. And like one of them was like, oh, he's the jerk of the group, which means these posts are going to be real, like, are going to be real mean and sassy. And I remember being like, and like, it didn't last for very long, because that is a tall order for like a 13-year-old to manage.
Yeah.
That's a lot of character work for a 13-year-old trying to run a fandom blog. Yeah. But I remember it being there. I remember being like, I remember mapping out the interpersonal relationships of the fictional writing staff of my fandom blog, and I would like to put that on the table, that this was the first post that we wrote was like, the gang's all here, and here's the fandoms that they like, and like,
yeah,
within 6 months, like you see, like as you see in the old posts, that like that gimmick is abandoned almost immediately, and never in the 10 to 15 years since this blog, since the the closing of this blog, has anyone asked like, hey, whatever happened to like Johnny Super? And you're like, please, you're like, thank God no one ever, like, no, this was when no one was following the blog, and so I could just quietly like cast those into the shadow realm.
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, I mean, and that is such one of the fandom dramas that constantly happens and has since at least the dawn of the internet, although I'm convinced that we could probably go back and, if we had access to like tons of correspondence, find instances of it happening before the internet too, is the sock puppet drama. Where somebody forgets which account they're logged into, or uses the wrong, punctuation marks when they're playing one character versus another character, and so somebody figures out that they're sock puppeting. Like, the sock puppet is such a difficult gimmick or trick or whatever it is. It's very hard to pull off well, and especially the multiple sock puppets that's a tall order.
The sock puppet drama legitimately altered the course of my basketball team, is the thing, which is an insane sentence to say out loud. But legitimately, like a member of the Philadelphia 76ers front office was exposed. It is I talk about this a lot because I exist in a lot of fandoms, and also I am a big sports guy, and I see the way that sports fandom is the same as
Sure.
all of the Tumblr fandom. Watching a member of the Sixers management team get outed, not just for like online harassment or whatever, but specifically because he was running multiple sock puppet accounts to talk up the decisions that he was making and trash people who were complaining about him. And then it came out that he was doing that and he got fired.
Yeah.
Man, you are so right. The sock puppet account is the realest thing in the world.
It is just, there is like some kernel of the human animal is like, but what if I had a friend who believed all the things that I believe, and they were a lot bolder than me, and they don't exist, but I could make them exist. Like, there's just, and nobody does it well. Not one single person has ever done it well. And my co-host Emily always says there's a reason they're called sock puppets and not extremely lifelike carbon copy marionette puppets. No, they're sock puppets. They're very clearly fake. That's a sock on your hand.
Nobody calls them Muppets because they're
Right.
not imbued with the beautiful life.
Exactly. Yeah, no, they're not Elmo. That's just a guy. No, these are sock puppets. I don't even lamb chop.
I'm so happy that we drew this card and got to really get into this. This has made my entire fucking night. I'm so happy. All right, I think we can draw a few more cards. I think we've got time for a few more.
All right.
I don't think we're going to reach any of the end points of the game, so we'll just kind of draw until I feel like is a natural kind of stopping point.
Sure.
3 of clubs. Other users. You made a friend posting comments on someone else's page. Are you still friends now? I think absolutely. I've got to think about it. Absolutely. In part because, like, I think they're, like, to me, when I think about, like, is it my turn or yours? I guess it doesn't matter.
It doesn't really matter. Yeah.
Okay, great. My immediate thought is, like, I think about, you know what I think a lot about is the experience of, like, getting old alongside my fandom friends.
Mm-hmm.
That's a thing I think of. That's a thing that I've really come to treasure. You know, the first time that you see somebody in one of your fandom spaces be like, I think I'm buying a house.
Yeah.
Does anybody know, like, does anybody have advice on roofing?
Yeah. Yeah.
That is a thing that I think about so often. And I think, like, there's a moment there that I think changes, like, that has, like, I remember, you know, this kind of goes back to the poll we made about, like, the grandma stuff very early in the game, but, like, there's something to, especially when you have been in a fandom space with someone for so long, that, like, both of your relationships to it change, and also both of the contexts of your lives change, and you kind of, like, see that in a person, and, like, when you have that moment with somebody where, like, you know, somebody's like, hey, does anybody have advice about, like, putting, you know, I remember actually a crystal clear memory of somebody messaging me offering to look at my resume because I had posted that I'd gotten laid off from a job I'd had for 9 years. And it was like a fandom friend and being like, all right, hell yeah. And they were like, oh yeah, no, I worked as like a professional recruiter for several years. Like I like looking at resumes was my job. And I was like, I would have never guessed.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. Totally. And I think there's also something to, you know, we talked about the fandom friends, like people disappear, but there's also people who come back, which I think
I love that. Yes.
is really special. I have one friend who we were really close in the early 2010s, and they were one of the people who just, their blog disappeared, their fics all disappeared. I mean, everything, like there was no trace of them. And because it's a fandom space, not everybody, you know, I don't use my government name in fandom spaces, and you know, neither did this friend. And so I was like, I don't even know how I would, you know, find out if something had happened to them. I hope they're okay. And, you know, cut to like almost 10 years later, I'm a completely different fandom space. and I make a friend in this new fandom space that I'm in. So I had this friend in One Direction fandom. Now it's 10 years later, I'm in Marvel fandom, and I make a friend, and we just both really love Steve and Bucky, and I'm getting closer to this person, and finally they message and they're like, we're getting to the point where I feel weird that I haven't told you I'm this old username. And I was like, oh my God, I think about you all the time and have been hoping that you were okay. I'm so happy that you're back and that you're still here and that we found each other again totally coincidentally in this new fandom space. It makes me so happy when I think about it. And like, I just treasure that so much.
I feel so strongly the exact same way. I'm so glad that was what you threw out, because that experience, like, I've had the times that I've had that experience, and like, the time, I think there's the element of like when you realize that someone is a person from an old fandom, and then there's the other side of that coin is also like when if somebody is using the same username and like you both drift apart, like you both leave a fandom and you disappear out of each other's lives, and then this has happened to me like once or twice where like I will see a name and go, that can't be the same.
Yeah.
Is that? Be like, is that? And our ships have once again passed in the night, and I'm like, that can't be. And like getting a like a social media follow from somebody and going like, from 10 years ago, and then you both kind of look and you're like, yeah, I just followed your stuff because I like your stuff. I just figured this was a good fandom relationship to have. And then we both kind of have that moment of like, hell yeah, you've been good? Things have been good in your world? Hell yeah. Hell yeah, dude. Yeah, no, it's great. It's one of those, like, they're not an imaginary person, and the finding, it's almost like when you have that same experience as going to school with somebody and you might not have the same classes for a couple of years, and then you end up in the same class again in high school or whatever, or you go to the same college after not having talked since third grade or something. I think it's a relatable experience even to people who aren't in online spaces. But also, I have to say, I enjoyed your possibly accidental and possibly on purpose pun of ships passing in the night. I didn't even think about it. Great. I'm so glad you called it out. That's a win. That's a huge win. Yeah. Huge, major dub. Great card draw. Great question. Let's flip one or two more, I think is what I think that'll feel like a good,
sure.
Especially with how long our turns have been going. I think that'll be great.
Sure.
This is an interesting question. What do our friends think of our project to save the posts? Are they encouraging or discouraging?
I mean, in my world, encouraging, but I'm a fandom historian, so it's all about trying to make sure that things get to still exist.
And that's, I think that we're both on the encouraging side. And I think because, like, especially in my current world, in the actual play RPG podcast world, which is also a fandom space where a lot of things just disappear.
Sure.
There are podcasts and things that I love that started shortly after I started Party of One that just are gone and just don't exist anymore. And to me, like the thing that I've been experiencing, especially in the last year, that I think has been really interesting and I think like puts a frame on this is, the thing I've been experiencing is people calling for the archiving of that as an artistic practice.
Yes.
The idea of hey, these things will go away. Like, we've already lost a tremendous amount of art. We should be cataloging it on things like the Wayback Machine, so that, so that people 20 years from now, provided that the internet still exists, like, we'll have a record of these things that we spent all of our time doing. And I think that's what's on my mind when I think about this question.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, one of the biggest resource that we use for This Week in Fandom History, and also just a site that I love that it exists, is fanlore.org, which is, it's a entirely, it's a Wikipedia of just fandom stuff. And and also it's part of the Organization for Transformative Works, which is also who own and operate Archive of Our Own, but also own and operate through that the Open Doors Project, which just imports dying and dead fanfiction websites onto AO3 with permission from the webmaster or webmistress or whoever was running the site when last it was online. And also, I think they also import like scans of old zines and things from before the internet as well, just to make sure that these things, like you said, we're pouring time into them and we're pouring love into them, and they deserve to exist. And I think if This Week in Fandom History had like a thesis statement, it would be that this deserves to exist. These things deserve to exist.
I like that. I like that so much that I think I want to leave the game there.
Okay, that works for me.
Sometimes you hear a thing and you just go like, that's the end beat of the experience, right? Is like there is, something. I'm so glad that we got to like sit down and through this game like talk about fandom and talk about the cataloging of these things and like talk about fandom history and our own fandom histories. This was a really magical experience. And let me ask you, what was your favorite moment from play?
I think the question about the grandma post was my favorite. And I think that was probably in my head. That's where I felt the most like, oh, this is an RPG, because like the image of the grandma came into my head and I was like, yeah. That's Linda. And I know Linda and I'm going to ride or die for Linda. And I feel like that's what I was looking for out of like a role-playing game experience. I'm
so glad. I'm so glad. And not to get ahead of things and to reveal our hand to the listener, but like we've been talking about doing a 3-person episode with you, me, and Emily. Emily, right?
Emily. Yep.
God, names are a source of anxiety always. Not to reveal our hands too much, but we've been talking about doing a 3-way episode with you, me, and Emily, where we play Discontinuity, which is a fandom building game, which I think I am tremendously excited to like really watch the two of you and like throw in pitches, but like watch the two of you like sit down and go, all right, here's our fictional fandom. What is the history of this event that we are building together? And I can't wait to like watch that unfold, because I think you're going to get so much of that specific experience.
Yeah, Emily and I have also talked about it on our end, and I think we're both really excited about it. And on one of the episodes of our show, and I don't even remember, I have no recollection of which episode it is, but we invented our own fictional 90s boy band.
Let's go. Let's fucking go.
We reference them sometimes, and their fandom we reference occasionally. So I feel like we kind of have it like tailor made. We're ready to go. We're ready to talk about Brad and when Brad did a thing. Like,
oh, I gotta know when Brad did a thing. I'm so fucking excited for when Brad did a thing.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, and I think like, for me, the moment of this that I loved the most, my favorite moment, was the one question, like the question that the turn that we had that turned into talking about November 5th, which turned into legitimately, I think, a 15-minute round of play.
Yeah.
Like, I think that to me, like the experience of playing this with you and like sitting down with a second person, that's the secret sauce to me, is like the feeling of both of us going like, oh, and then of course this of course also happened, and like us both, reflecting on all of these like shared moments of fandom history that we have in the backs of our brains. Like that to me was what I was really hoping for when I was like, I'm going to sit down and play this game with someone, and like I got exactly what I wanted.
Aw, yeah, for sure. Yeah, no, this was very fun.
This was a joy. Thank you so much for sitting down with me. Real quick, before we wrap things up, where can people find you and your work online?
You can find us at thisweekinfandomhistory.com, which is our website, which I designed, and I am very proud of it. So I'm just going to throw that out there.
It is legitimately a great website. I am a podcast website aficionado, and it really hit me of like, this is a well laid out website.
Thank you. Yes, it took it took some time, but I'm glad you liked it. So thisweekinfandomhistory.com. We are also thisweekinfandomhistory.tumblr.com. We are on Instagram. We just started our Instagram very recently, so we have like under 100 followers. So if you want to follow us on Instagram, we are also at This Week in Fandom History over on Instagram. Those are our only social medias, are Tumblr and Instagram. We're not on Threads or X or any of the others. So if somebody does have one that is not us, we have not been told that somebody is sock puppeting us, but I wouldn't put it past anybody, just in case. And
it is fandom.
It is fandom. And you can find This Week in Fandom History, the podcast, on wherever you are listening to this, unless you're on YouTube, I guess, because we're not on YouTube. But we're on all of the audio podcatchers, and we have a new main feed episode every Sunday where we go in and do a deep dive on an event from fandom history. And then every other Wednesday, we have a preview of our Patreon show, which is called Batman Wouldn't, Spider-Man Would, a podcast about sex with superheroes, where we decide whether superheroes are fuckable. And generally the answer is, oh, I wish they wouldn't. So, yeah. And that's fun. So we have 2 episodes most weeks. Occasionally we only have 1, but we're pretty consistently updating and full of fandom content.
I am quietly acknowledging that that's a great, tremendous idea for a show, and holding back. This is Jeff not tapping into the fandom beast within to unfurl all of my takes about Superman on that exact specific topic.
Yeah.
I'm going to sit and I'm going to hold that in the back of my mind, but I'm going to say this was a joy. Thank you so much for this. And now I'm going to throw it over to me in the future so that he can wrap up with the show. Take it, future me. Thanks, past me, and thanks again to V for coming onto the show. This game was such a wonderful experience. Like, this was everything that I wanted when we, like, picked this game and we talked about the topic and, like, we were, like, sharing notes with each other. Like, this was what I wanted it to be. I'm over the moon. I think it was a really wonderful way of, like, getting to talk about fandom and getting to talk about our fandom experiences. I'm just really over the moon with this. Be sure to check out This Week in Fandom History at thisweekinfandomhistory.com. Be sure to pick up your own copy of Un-Navigateable at kramstack.itch.io. You can also follow V on Tumblr at Aim My Arrows High. As always, if you enjoyed this episode, if you enjoy the show, here is one concrete thing you can do to support the show, to put it in front of new audiences, to help it grow, and to show your appreciation. This is a 2-part ask, because some of you may have done one part of it already. If you have not done so, leave us a review on your platform of choice, if that's Apple, if that's Spotify. Do they have reviews? I don't know if they do, but like Podcast Addict, Podchaser, wherever you leave reviews for podcasts, leave us a review. Tell us one thing you liked about the show. Tell us something that you enjoy about this episode, a guest you would like to hear on the show. And if you've already done that, what I would love for you to do is just like share that review on your social media platform of choice, whether that's Blue Sky or Tumblr or Instagram, or if for some weird fucking reason you're still on X, the everything app formerly known as Twitter, where you do all of your banking. Side note, you should find a new social media platform if that's the case, but like that's neither here nor there. Share that review that you wrote and just like put the word into the ether of like what it is that you like about the show that we make. You know, we are coming up on 500 episodes. My birthday is around the corner. All of these things are like, it's been like a weird, tough year, and like being reminded that people like this and like are appreciative of the work would genuinely mean a lot at a point when it has felt, you know, tough to find the things that keep you pushing through a lot of things. Anyway, that would be much appreciated. Party of One is produced and edited, as always, by Jeff Stormer and Jen Frank. Music for the show comes from the song Infinite Lives by Megaran featuring the D&D Sluggers, and the Party of One logo is by Evan Rowland. If you'd like to inquire about advertising rights coming on the show as a guest, press coverage though, or if you want to email me a recipe for a baked good, which like 4 people have done, and genuinely, those people, I would take a bullet for each and every one of you, because that is the greatest email that I've ever received in my life. If you would like to do any of those things, you can email me at partyofonepodcast@gmail.com. And I think, unless I'm mistaken, that's all we do here. So until next time, thank you so much for listening. Remember to fight the forces of fascism every single day. Remember that self-love and self-care are radical and defiant acts of resistance. And as always, party on, everybody.
Never gonna die.